everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles, the podcast where we reread our favorite books and chat about them. I'm your host, Alyson, and without further ado, let's get started. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 18 of Bookish Babbles. Today we're going to be talking about chapters 19 to 21 of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Hello, how's everyone doing? It's been a while since I chatted with you guys. I've forgotten how to speak in podcast. Anyway, I am back in the United States. I was in Ireland for a whole week with my mom and grandparents, seeing multiple different places. We had so much fun. Ultimate tours. We took a tour bus and all. Went to Dublin, Shannon, Galway for a few hours. I would definitely want to go back there and explore more of Galway because I was only there for a couple hours. We saw the Rings of Kerry. I held a baby lamb. We saw the island where they filmed the end of The Force Awakens from a distance. You have to charter a boat to get out there. I have a really crappy photo of it on my phone because it's fairly far out, and most days it's so foggy and cloudy around it you can't even see the island. So we were actually really lucky to be able to see it at all that well. And I can see why the monks who originally inhabited that island chose that spot for isolation, because it's far and hard to get to. It's also just amazing how they were able to build everything. Like, the stairs that we see Rey climb in the movie were handmade by monks, and this was like the 14th century, like no modern tools, and it's amazing, and I just want to go back and visit the island. And I also bought quite a few books, as I knew I would. Like, I even packed an extra tote bag to be my second carry-on because I knew this would happen. Maybe I'll do a little book haul on my Instagram, so be on the lookout for that. But one thing I will tell you I got was a new set of the Hunger Games series. So Ireland sells the UK editions, and I couldn't resist getting the whole series, including Ballad, of course, which I think Ballad is my favorite cover out of all of them. And speaking of Ballad, did you guys see the teaser trailer that they made? I love it. Can you tell that I'm also starved for more Ballad content? You know, I'll take any crumbs that they give me. And also, we have more casting news. So Josh Andres Rivera was cast as Sejanus Plinth. And funny enough, he's dating Rachel, aka Lucy Gray. The two of them are dating in real life. And he even starred alongside her in West Side Story, where, ironically, he played the character who was romantically interested in Maria, Rachel's character, but ultimately, you know, he wasn't destined to get the girl. And you know, Josh was also in a film called Cat Person, according to his IMDb. We also got Ashley Leo as Clemencia. She was on Fuller House, and the Disney movie, I think, is on Disney Plus, Secret Society of Second Born Royals. We have Mackenzie Lansing as Coral, who's the tribute from District 4. She was in a web series called Knights of New Jersey, and according to her IMDb, will soon be on Mayor of Easttown, the HBO Max series with Kate Winslet, so good for her. We also have Knox Gibson as Bobbin, the kid from District 8. And he is best known for starring in the Netflix film. I can't talk. Forgive Us Our Trespasses. And we also have Amar Hussain as Felix Ravenhill, who's one of the mentors and is related to the current president at the time in the book. No other films are mentioned on his IMDb page, but according to his bio, he speaks English, Urdu, and Arabic, which is really cool, and is a skilled gymnast. And lastly, we have Jerome Lance as Marcus, who from District 2, and I think this is his first film, since it's Ballad's the only one listed on his IMDb. So good for him. Really happy. I think the actor who played Thresh in the movie. I think that was also his first job, so the franchise is continuing to help new actors get their foot in the door, so yay, love to see it. Still waiting on the Dr. Gall and Tigress casting. They start filming in like about a month, maybe a little less than a month, so so excited. Can't wait to see some on-set photos. So I hope nothing too much gets leaked because, that tends to happen. We've just been hearing about this movie since the book was announced, and it's finally happening, and I almost can't believe it's happening. It's like all these casting news just make it feel so official, and I will be insufferable. I will be an insufferable Lucy Gray and Rachel Zegler stan the whole time. I will defend all of Lucy Gray's actions in the movie, just like I do in the book, and I will defend Rachel's performance. Anyway, enough about Ballad. We're here to talk about the Hunger Games book. We are now on part 3, The Victor. So last time, Katniss and Rue's plan to destroy the career's food supply is successful. The most heartbreaking scene in the book happens. Rue dies, but her death may or may not spark future events. And there's a new rule change that, changes the game completely. This week, Katniss finds Peeta and has to find a way to heal him. She gets a little better at playing the star-crossed lovers angle, and the tributes get invited to a feast. So with all that being said, let's dive into Chapter 19. So we pick up right where the last chapter left off. Claudius has just made the announcement about the rule change, and Katniss shouts out Peeta's name. So the chapter opens with Katniss immediately clapping her hand over her mouth and anticipating an attack. Then she remembers that the arena is huge and hardly anyone is left in it anyway. And after a while, no one comes to attack her, so she should be in the clear. Now it doesn't matter whatever doubts Katniss has about Peeta in the past, because now he's her best ally. And she wonders if she and Peeta are the reason that the rule change happened, because, Peeta sold the romance so well, and it's now so popular that condemning it would jeopardize the success of the games, and everything Peeta's done has not, in fact, been a threat to her. I could have told you that from the beginning, Katniss, but whatever. So, she even smiles thinking about this, and when was the last time Katniss smiled in this book? At the beginning in the woods with Gale? At some point with Peeta before the game started? I'm not sure. I don't remember. It's just really important to me right now that Katniss smiled. In case you don't know already, hi, my name's Alyson, and I'm an insufferable Everlark shipper. Nice to meet you. Apologies to anyone who's Team Gale. Anyway, Katniss goes through the list of who's left. Foxface, whom she's not too worried about since her strategy seems to be avoiding everyone else. And also her district partner's dead, so she's operating alone. Poor Foxface. And then there's Thresh, who is a distinct threat and likely off on his own in the field that Katniss hasn't explored yet. And Cato and Clover are the only other ones who benefit from the rule change. Katniss goes to sleep and plans to search for Peeta in the morning. When she does start her search, Katniss has to be extra careful since the careers will know that she's looking for Peeta, who is currently quite injured. She tries to figure out where Peeta possibly could have gone to. The last time she saw him was when he saved her from Cato. He couldn't have gotten very far injured and high on Tracker Jacker venom. Eventually she concludes that he must be hiding near a stream somewhere since he would need water in order to stay alive. Before heading off, she does start a fire to hopefully confuse the others. And eventually she comes to a muddy area by the stream with large rocks that start to make her feel a bit trapped. And just when she decides to move, she sees dried blood going down the curve of a boulder. She finds more bloodstains, but no signs of Peeta. But not to worry, because Peeta announces himself by saying, "You here to finish me off, sweetheart?" Because Peeta's nothing without something witty to say. And he's literally right underneath Katniss, hiding in the ground. Katniss thinks that Peeta should have shown the game makers, his ability to camouflage instead of throwing heavy things, because then he would have earned a 10 for sure. And like Katniss said, all those hours of decorating cakes paid off, which Peeta hilariously follows up by saying, yes, frosting, the final defense of dying. Okay, this is something the movies, especially the first one, nearly leaves out, and that's Peeta's sense of humor, because he's got a lot of good lines, especially here, and knowing me, I'm going to end up reading a lot of them out loud to you guys, so fair warning, sorry, not sorry. Like this one when Peeta whispers in Katniss's ear, "Remember, we're madly in love, so it's all right to kiss me anytime you feel like it." All joking aside, he is right about that. And what's definitely not a joke are his injuries. He can't even move on his own. Katniss has to get him to the edge of the stream and clean as much mud and dirt off of him as she can, then treats the tracker jacker and burn wounds on his upper arm. And she uses the pills from Marvel's first aid kit to help reduce his fever, though he's still pretty sick since he hasn't been hungry for days, and the best his stomach can manage is to eat some dried fruit. And when it's time to look at his leg, Katniss nearly runs away, and I'll spare you guys too many details. But let's just say that it's swollen, a bit bloody, and there's a lot of pus. So Katniss does her best to have the same calm demeanor as her mother when she's treating a patient, and what's ironic at this point is that Prim would have been more helpful to Peeta in this situation than Katniss is, since, Katniss flees when her mother is treating anything worse than a cold, and nearly throws up her breakfast as she's cleaning the pus out of Peeta. And then there's a wonderful dialogue that starts on page 257. So it starts when Peeta says, "Katniss," Peeta says, "I meet his eye. Knowing my face must be some shade of green, he mouths the words, 'How about that kiss?' I burst out laughing because the whole thing is so revolting I can't stand it. 'Something wrong?' he asked a little too innocently. I'm no good at this. I'm not my mother. I've no idea what I'm doing, and I hate pus," I say. Ugh. I allow myself to let out a groan as I rinse away the first round of leaves and apply the second. Ugh. "How do you hunt?" he asked. "Trust me, killing things is much easier than this," I said. "Although for all I know, I'm killing you." "Can you speed it up a little?" he asked. "No, shut up and eat your pears," I say. So after cleaning the pus out of Peeta's leg, it starts to look better, though the cut still goes down to the bone, so then they continue to have even more great dialogue when Katniss washes his shorts. Starts on page 258. So starts with Katniss saying, "Here, cover yourself with this and I'll wash your shorts." "Oh, I don't care if you see me," says Peeta. "You're just like the rest of my family," I say. "I care, all right?" I turn my back and look at the stream until the undershorts splash into the current. He must be feeling a bit better if he can throw. You're kind of squeamish for such a lethal person," says Peeta, as I beat the shorts clean between two rocks. "I wish that I'd let you give Haymitch a shower after all." I wrinkle my nose at the memory. "What's he send you so far?" "Not a thing," says Peeta. Then there's a pause as it hits him. "Why, did you get something?" "Burn medicine," I say almost sheepishly. "Oh, and some bread." "I always knew you were his favorite," says Peeta. "Please, he can't stand being in the same room with me," I say. "Because you're just alike," murmurs Peeta. I ignore it, though, because this really isn't the time for me to be insulting Haymitch, which is my first impulse. Poor Haymitch. So after that, they go and find somewhere to hide since they're obviously very vulnerable out in the open with an injured Peeta. Katniss wants to hide in a tree, but, getting Peeta up one is kind of impossible, so she settles for a nearby cave. And after setting up inside, a very notable thing happens. Starts on page 260 with Peeta saying, "Katniss, thanks for finding me. You would have found me if you could," I say, his forehead burning up, like the medicine's having no effect at all. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm scared he's going to die. "Yes, look, if I don't make it back," he begins. "Don't talk like that. I didn't drain all that pus for nothing," I say. "I know, but just in case I don't," he tries to continue. "No, Peeta, I don't even want to discuss it," I say, placing my fingers on his lips to quiet him. "But," he insists. Impulsively, I lean forward and kiss him, stopping his words. This is probably overdue anyway, since he's right. We are supposed to be madly in love. It's the first time I've ever kissed a boy, which should make some sort of impression, I guess. but all I can register is how unnaturally hot his lips are from the fever. I break away and pull the edge of the sleeping bag up around him. You're not going to die. I forbid it. All right? All right, he whispers. Now, technically, this is the first time they kiss, obviously. And while it makes no impression on Katniss, definitely made an impression on Peeta. And I can imagine that the Capitol audience is loving it and probably screaming and clapping like, we do what we do when we see our favorite TV or movie couple kiss. And then Katniss is rewarded for kissing him because she gets another sponsor gift from Haymitch, a pot of broth. So, his message is pretty obvious. Keep up the star-crossed lovers act and you get food. And the chapter ends with Katniss giving Peeta another kiss to wake him up and to show him the broth. So, that being said, time to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about chapter 20. Hey guys, it's Alyson from a different point in time, and I'm here to give you another random recommendation. So, before I give the recommendation, fun fact about me, it is that I absolutely loathe most self-help books. And just these motivational speakers in general, because, I just find them really unhelpful. And I'm not saying all of them, I'm just saying most that I've seen, because so many of them say things like, you are 100% in control of everything. If you are not happy, it's because you're doing something wrong and it's your fault. And that just feels so gaslighty. And I feel like most people who write self-help books like that just come from these very privileged backgrounds, and not everyone comes from those backgrounds. And I'm sorry, but the truth is, we are not fully in control of everything that happens in our lives, which is terrifying and is something I kind of struggle to deal with at times, but it's true. And, if something really horrible happens, especially something traumatic happens to you, it's that was not your fault. And to just push this idea of you're in control of everything is just so gaslighty. It makes my blood boil. I can't stand stuff like that. So I've rejected most self-help books that push this toxic hustle culture. But anyway, ironically, I'm here to recommend a quote-unquote self-help book, which is one of the few quote-unquote self-help books that I feel actually actually helps. And it helped me, and it's helped a few other friends that I know who don't like self-help books either, and that is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And it did exactly what it sounds like. Just helping you learn to prioritize what to actually give a fuck about. And it is really helpful, and it's something I'm still trying to do, because I am the type of person who sometimes cares too much and wants everyone to like me, and this book is honestly really helpful for me in trying not to be like that too often, because that's not good for your mental state. You need to prioritize the things that you actually care about, and to care less about what other people, especially strangers or very loose acquaintances, think of you. And so yeah, like I said, this is coming from someone who does not like self-help books. I like this self-help book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And he also wrote another book called Everything is Fucked. And I like that one. And that one was written in 2019. I'd like to see him write a sort of follow-up after everything that happened in the past couple of years, because, 2020 was an insane year. I would be very curious what he has to say about that, especially internet culture, which he touched on in Everything is Fucked. But yeah, anyway, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Recommend. And the audiobook's also really good. So, back to the episode. Okay, we're back. So, it takes Katniss an hour to get Peeta to eat the whole broth, and then she lets him go to sleep. No new deaths are reported in the night sky that day. Hopefully the game makers let them have a peaceful night since Katniss and Peeta provided enough entertainment for the day. Katniss mostly spends the night taking care of Peeta, trying to keep him cool because, his fever is crazy, and she changes his bandages. In the morning, his fever thankfully breaks. Katniss then goes to gather some berries, and when she comes back, Peeta is trying and struggling to get up. And Peeta, being the sweetheart he is, has the nerve to worry about Katniss being gone for a few minutes while he literally has one foot in the grave. And people wonder why me and a lot of other people love him. Anyway, Peeta continues to be a sweetheart by telling Katniss to get some sleep since he can tell she was up all night. And I just love little things like this so much because Katniss has had to be strong, the strong one for years. Like, she never gets to be the vulnerable one, and that's exhausting. We can't be strong all of the time. It's impossible. It's just so nice that someone is like taking care of her right now, even if it's just for a little small moment. And Katniss tells him to wake her in a couple hours, but Peeta naturally lets her sleep longer because it's well into the afternoon when she wakes up. She's annoyed, but I support his decision, Katniss. You needed it. And I was recently on an overnight flight to Dublin, and I couldn't sleep because I have a hard time sleeping on planes. Our flight left Boston at like 6 p.m., and about 6 hours later, we landed in Dublin about like 5:45 a.m. because, of the magic of time travel, aka time zones. We couldn't check into our hotel until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, and I was literally falling asleep as we were walking through a museum. Like, once we were able to check in, I passed out for like 5 hours, slept through dinner. So my mom brought me back falafels and chips, and they were delicious. So yes, Katniss, suck it up. You needed the sleep. But the cute moment is cut short because Katniss realizes that Peeta has blood poisoning and he's going to need capital medicine. So the best they can do is either hope some sympathetic sponsor sends them the very expensive medicine they need, and I do mean very because items get more expensive as the days keep going, or just hope that Peeta manages to somehow outlast the others. But the good news is that it's so brutally hot that they don't have to risk a fire because Katniss can literally just cook the food on the rocks outside. So she makes soup, sets some snares, and when she goes back inside, Peeta asks her to tell a story, specifically something happy, the happiest day of her life. Katniss understandably had a bit of a hard time thinking of one because most of the ones she thinks of involve being in the woods with Gale, but that won't play over well with the Capitol audience. So instead, we get the story about how Katniss got Prim's goat. And I'm yawning again. Now, Katniss has to tell an edited version of the story out loud since she's still on national TV and she doesn't want to get anyone back home in trouble. But we, the reader, are inside her head, so we get the actual version. So the story goes, in late May, the day before Prim's 10th birthday, so this would have been about a couple years ago, Katniss and Gale go hunting, hoping to get enough to buy Prim something nice for her birthday. They start off with their average Friday night haul, which is a bit of a disappointment. But their luck soon changes when they take down a young buck. They wait until it's dark to bring the deer to the butcher so that they don't look like they're rubbing it in the officials' faces by carrying the deer into town in the middle of the day. We learn that the butcher's name is Ruba, and according to Katniss, Ruba is not someone you haggle with. She sets one price and you can take it or leave it, but it's always a fair price. After selling the deer to Ruba, it's the most money Katniss and Gale have ever held in their lives, even after splitting it among themselves. They decide to keep the money a secret and surprise their families the next day. Meanwhile, Katniss tells Peeta that she got the money by selling an old silver locket. Anyway, so back to the real story. When Katniss and Gale go shopping the next day, Katniss is looking at dress materials to buy for Prim, but then she sees the old man with the goats. She doesn't know his name. Everyone just calls him the Goat Man. Goat Man is known for being an asshole, but he cares for his goats, and he's lucky because he was able to save up enough money so that he could have something to do once he could no longer work in the mines. I guess Panem doesn't have a retirement plan for its citizens. Then again, I shouldn't be surprised that they're completely fine with just letting their senior citizens starve to death once they're no longer of any use. Katniss sees that one of the goats is lying down in a cart since her shoulder was mauled and infection has set in. And right then and there, Katniss wants to buy the goat for Prim, not only because, Prim would love it and would know how to fix her up, but because having a goat can change your life, since goats can feed on just about anything, and they can produce 4 quarts of milk a day, to drink or to make into cheese, and it's completely legal to sell cheese. And according to Goatman, the butcher is already planning on buying it. But then Ruba shows up and proves just how awesome she is. She tells Goatman that their deal is off since the goats, he undersold just how injured the goat actually was, and tells him to sell it to Katniss if she's stupid enough to take her, but then winks at Katniss as she walks away. Haha. So Goatman is pissed but still wants to get rid of the goat. But still takes him and Katniss half an hour to agree on a price, and they even draw a crowd who weighs in their opinions. But they come to an agreement. Gale offers to carry the goat home. Prim's so excited. She and Mrs. Everdeen get to work and manage to heal the goat, who she names Lady. And when she finishes the story, Katniss and Peeta have a little bit of banter, and then trumpets sound and Claudius makes another announcement. As expected, it's an invitation to a feast. Katniss's immediate reaction is to wave it off since she and Peeta are set on being able to get food. But then Claudius promises that it won't be an ordinary feast. Each of them needs something desperately. So this is going to be the only real chance they have to heal Peeta's leg. And Peeta, being Peeta, immediately tells Katniss not to go, and Katniss, being Katniss, is a bad liar and can't convincingly tell Peeta that, of course I won't go. What are you talking about? He also tells her she should never play cards because she has no poker face and would lose her last coin. He's got a point. Then the two of them start to argue, as they do. Katniss insists on going. Peeta threatens to drag himself to follow her and shout her name the whole time, because, then someone will surely find him and kill him. So now they're kind of at a bit of a standstill. Katniss can't just sit there and watch him die. Both she and the audience would loathe her for it. So Peeta promises that if she doesn't go, he'll do whatever she says, eat whatever she wants him to do, and everything he can to stay alive. So for now, Katniss agrees. Later, when Katniss goes down to the stream, she's sent another sponsor gift, and for a second she hopes that it's the medicine that Peeta needs, but it's sleep syrup, enough to knock out a person for a day. Interesting. So Katniss mashes up some berries, adds the syrup and mint, then the chapter ends with her tricking Peeta into eating them, and he even figures it out by the last bite and tries to spit it out, and Katniss literally forces him to swallow it. Then he passes out. So yeah, another notable difference between book Peeta and movie Peeta, because in the movie, Peeta literally just falls asleep and Katniss goes to the feast and he doesn't wake up until she gets back. And I feel like people who have only seen the movies or maybe just haven't read the books in a while think of Peeta as this pushover, and sure, he's more passive when compared to Katniss, but Peeta's not a complete pushover in the books. He's stubborn too. He's not afraid to challenge Katniss, and even as he's being forced unconscious, he's fighting to the last second to make sure Katniss doesn't go and risk her life. So yeah, Peeta's not a pushover. He's still a strong person. So with that mini rant being said, time for another break. When we come back, we'll talk about what happens at the feast. Hey guys, me again with another random recommendation. So For this one, I'm gonna recommend a book by an author that I weirdly have not talked about on this podcast. I don't think, which is strange because I really love this author. And by the way, he also just came out with a new book, which ironically is a self-help book, which I know I just said in the last segment. I don't like self-help books, but I'm going to trust him to write. He's one of the few people I would trust to write a self-help book. And the author, his name is Matthew Dix, and his new book is called, what's it called? Someday? Should have written this down. Whoops. But I just got in the mail. I'm going to start reading it soon. See if, I was right to trust him to write a self-help book. But anyway, I do trust his novels, and the one that I'm going to recommend today is also my favorite one that I've read by him so far. It's called Memoirs of an Imaginary Friend. So, imaginary friend Budo narrates this heartwarming story of love, loyalty, and the power of imagination. The perfect read for anyone who has ever had a friend, real or otherwise. Budo was lucky as imaginary friends go. He's been alive for more than 5 years, which is positively ancient in the world of imaginary friends. But Budo feels his age and thinks constantly of the day when 8-year-old Maxa Delaney will stop believing in him. When that happens, Budo will disappear. Max is different from other children. Some people say he has Asperger's syndrome, but most just say he's on the spectrum. None of this matters to Budo, who loves Max and is charged with protecting him from the class bully, from awkward situations in the cafeteria, and even in the bathroom stalls. But he can't protect Max from Mrs. Patterson, the woman who works with Max in the learning center, and who believes that she alone is qualified to care for this young boy. So yeah, wonderful story. My grandma recommends it because I got her to read it and she loves it. And Matthew's just a wonderful human being. I've been lucky enough to meet him on his book launches, and I want everyone to read his books because they're fantastic. So Memoirs of an Imaginary Friend by Matthew Dix. With that being said, back to the episode. All right, we are back. Excuse me. So this chapter opens with the day coming to an end and Katniss making preparations for the next day. She camouflages the cave opening enough to keep it concealed but still leave a way out. Fills their bottles with water, purifies them, makes dinner with some fish. And as she settles in for the night, she starts to think about everyone back home. Because with a big event like a feast happening, school will likely be canceled for the day, and also wonders what Gale thinks about all the kissing she and Peeta have been doing. Doesn't matter, Katniss. He's not worth it. Anyway, Katniss leaves a few hours before dawn and heads to the cornucopia. Even gives Peeta a long kiss before leaving in order to maintain the whole star-crossed lover storyline. Katniss makes her way to the same hiding spot Rue told her about when she blew up the career supplies, and she has to wait there. And when the sun rises, the ground in front of the mouth of the cornucopia opens up and a table with 4 backpacks on it rises. 2 large packs with the numbers 2 and 11 on them, a medium-sized green bag with the number 5, and a small orange one with the number 12. And as soon as the table clicks into place, Foxface sprints out of the cornucopia, grabs her pack, and flees into the woods. And it's a genius move, because, while everyone's still positioned around the woods trying to figure out, what to do, Foxface has her pack, and she's running away. And very unlikely that anyone would chase after her, since she only took hers. And no one wants to leave their own pack vulnerable for someone else to take. So now Katniss has to sprint to the table to get her pack before someone else does. And she hears a knife coming, thankfully, on her right, the ear that's actually still working. She uses her bow to deflect the knife. Then Katniss turns and fires an arrow at Clove, brushes her arm and slows her down for a moment. Katniss grabs her pack and turns to fire another arrow, and another knife slices her right eyebrow. Then Clove slams in to Katniss and pins her down to the ground. Katniss hopes it'll be fast, but not likely since Clove will want to savor the moment. Plus, she feels like she has time with Cato watching her back somewhere in the woods, probably looking for Thresh. Katniss tries to make a bluff by claiming Peeta is in the woods nearby and even calls out his name. Clove considers for a couple seconds that Katniss is telling the truth, but ultimately doesn't buy it. And then Clove does a villain monologue speech, goes on about how they're going to kill Katniss, Peeta will eventually die because he won't get the medicine, yada yada yada. She also talks about how they killed Rue, which makes Katniss angry enough to resolve that she'll stare Clove down the whole time as a way not to give in. And just as she braces herself, someone lifts Clove off her, and it's Thresh. Katniss is shocked, naturally, and she also notes that unlike the rest of them, Thresh looks like he's gained weight, so the field he's hiding out in, clearly he knows how to find food there. And there are no peacekeepers to stop him from eating, unlike back home. Thresh flings Clove on the ground, and he is angry. He heard Clove's villain monologue, and let's just say he's not very happy to learn about how Rue died. Clove calls out to Cato, but he's too far away to help. Thresh brings down a rock on Clove's temple, and even though it doesn't kill her right away, it's clear that she's a goner. Then Thresh turns to Katniss, and I'm just going to read their interaction out loud for you guys because it's a good one. So it starts toward the bottom of page 287 with Thresh saying, "What'd she mean about Rue being your ally? We teamed up, blew up the supplies. I tried to save her, I did, but he got there first. District 1, I say. Maybe if he knows I helped Rue, he won't choose some slow, sadistic end for me." "And you killed him?" he demands. "Yes, I killed him, and buried her in flowers, I say, and sang her to sleep." Tears spring in my eyes. The tension, the fight goes out of me at the memory, and I'm overwhelmed by Rue and the pain in my head and my fear of Thresh and the moaning of the dying girl a few feet away. "To sleep?" Thresh says gruffly. "To death. I sang until she died, I say. Your district, they send me bread. My hand reaches up, but not for an arrow that I know I'll never reach, just to wipe my nose. Do it fast, okay, Thresh?" Conflicting emotions cross Thresh's face. He lowers the rock and points at me, almost accusingly. "Just this one time, I let you go. For the little girl. You and me were even then. No more owed. You understand?" I nod because I do understand. About owing, about hating it. I understand that if Thresh wins, he'll have to go back and face a district that has already broken all the rules to thank me, and he is breaking the rules to thank me too. And I understand that, for the moment, Thresh is not going to smash in my skull. "Clove!" Cato's voice is much nearer now. I can tell by the pain in it that he sees her on the ground. "You better run now, fire girl," says Thresh. And naturally, Katniss does not hesitate to run away. I would too. And when she's at the edge of the woods, she turns and sees what's going on. Thresh has taken both his and Cato's bags and is fleeing. Cato's kneeling beside Clove, begging her to stay with him, but soon he realizes that there's nothing he can do to help her, and he goes to chase Thresh since, he still is the thing that Cato desperately needs. And this is one of the moments that I desperately wish they had kept in the movie, along with Madge. And it's such a small moment, but I think that it means so much, because up until this point, we've been seeing the careers filtered through Katniss's eyes as just these, capital darling, killing machine lapdogs, and we don't really see them as anything but obstacles in the way of Katniss getting home. And we're happy when Glimmer dies because Katniss is able to get her bow. We're happy Marvel died because he killed Rue, and we're glad Thresh killed Clove so that Katniss didn't die, and Peeta can get his medicine. And Cato's been kind of, built up to be, the biggest threat to Katniss in the arena. The one we should be most scared of, even though he effectively kills people half the time at best, but whatever. But this moment where he's kneeling next to Clove and begging her to stay with him, it reminds us that he's still a teenager. Just like Katniss, he's still a child. A child who's trained to kill people, but still a child. And he just wants his friend, or potentially more. We don't really know what their relationship is, but he wants Clove alive. Anyway, so the chapter ends with Katniss making it back to the cave. She injects the medicine into Peta, who is still unconscious, and then passes out herself. And the last thing she sees is a green and silver moth land on her wrist. So, with all that being said, that's the end of the chapter and the end of this part. Next week we will get more cave scenes, which I love, and I'm so sad that we didn't get more of the cave scene in the movie, but whatever. We'll talk about that more later on. So, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to like, follow, all that good stuff. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I would really appreciate if you guys left a review. It helps the podcast and so more people can find it, because, you know, with the Ballad movie coming out next year and Hunger Games fandom kind of crawling out of the cave, I just, I'd love to have more people listen to the podcast and build a bigger community, because I really love talking about the Hunger Games with other people as well. And so, excuse me, it is very late right now. I don't know why I put off recording so late, but I did. This is what I get for procrastinating. Follow on Instagram, all that good stuff. You guys know the drill now if you've been listening for a while. But like I said, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I probably said that already, but like I said, my brain doesn't work right now because it is getting late. I'm excited to be back recording again, all that good stuff. Hope you guys have a great day/night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.